Hey guys, Matt Bean here with Built Right Industries. I just finished up the installation of our bedside rack kit on this 2018 Ram Power Wagon. This same kit is going to work for a 2009 to 19 Classic Ram with a short or standard length bed. I just went through it start to finish, shot a ton of video, a ton of photos. We're going to go through it in excruciating detail here in a minute. But before we got started, I thought I'd give you an overview, show you some tips and tricks that are going to speed up the process for you, but also make you more comfortable and confident in your installation, because it does require drilling a few holes. We've designed all of the components of the product to work well and provide some wiggle room so that if you do make a mistake, you're still going to get a great installation, but you shouldn't have any problems as long as you follow our procedure here. Now, as far as the installation goes, it's probably going to take you 2 to 4 hours to install the panels. That kind of depends on your level of comfort and how fast, frankly, you're just trying to go. If you're really trying to blast through it and you're really comfortable doing this kind of work, it might take you an hour and a half. If you're not, or you want to take your time and get a great install, it may take you longer. So my suggestion is set aside some time, enjoy it, don't stress about it, collect the right tools, those are important, and then just tackle it at a pace that you're comfortable with. All right, so I'm hand holding the camera now, so I apologize if there's any shakiness, but I wanted to give you a good view. What we're going to start with is the rear driver's side panel. All of the panels, the installation procedure is basically the same. So what we're going to do is this driver's side panel on the rear, and then we're going to time lapse the front so that you can see what we do there as a reference. But basically, more or less, if your truck is equipped with the bed lights, we're going to remove those from the bed, and then we're going to mark and drill our holes for that upper mounting point using a paper template. And then we're going to install the threaded inserts there, as well as the rubber well nut at the bottom here so that the panel sort of can be loosely fit. And then we're going to use that support bracket that you see back here itself as the template for drilling the the third and fourth hole. That's just going to mean that there's basically no chance that we get to the end of installing the panel and it doesn't fit really nicely. So then we're going to go through and snug everything down and repeat the procedure in the other corners of the truck. That is basically it. So here's the last thing you may notice, and this is on a 2500, this happens to be a Power Wagon, is this reinforcement bracket at the front corner of the bed. You'll see it on both front corners, if we can focus there. And all that means is that you've got a little bit more material to drill through for this front dog bone mount, and we've got a longer threaded fastener that's included in the kit and in a marked baggie for you. So before we get started, it's important to make sure that you have the right tools for the job. In some areas, there are things where you can use one tool versus another and kind of substitute. And in other areas, like drill bits, it's important to have good, sharp drill bits. That's going to make your job a lot easier and a lot faster. So let's take a look at the tools that I use to install these panels on a 2018 Power Wagon. First is a 3/8 inch socket and or wrench. The next is a 5mm Allen key. A screwdriver is going to help us pry your bed light loose if your truck is equipped. A drill or an impact driver with drill bits. You're going to want a 3/8 inch drill bit. And then you're also going to want a smaller drill bit to drill a pilot hole. So that'll be up to you. I use 7/64. Next, we've got our rivet nut installation tool. In your kit, you're going to get a series of nuts and bolts that will work as a tool. Something like this is around 50 or 60 bucks online. It makes the job much, much easier, faster. You can do it with the tool that we provide, but I really recommend you consider investing in something like this. Finally, a roll of masking tape and a pen or pencil or marker is going to help you mark your drill points accurately. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is unbox your kit here. Spread your parts out. What you see here is a kit for a full side of the bed. So that's a front panel and a rear panel. If you ordered a smaller kit or a larger kit, obviously your quantities are going to vary here. What you see at the top of the frame, that is the panel for the rear of the bed. We can tell because it has an opening for the bed light in the upper left-hand corner there. What you see on the bottom here is the panel for the front of the bed. Now on a standard length bed, these two panels look pretty similar. On a short bed, this panel towards the front is going to look a little bit smaller. On the bottom left, you can see we've got our two bent steel brackets. Those are powder coated. And then we've got a hardware kit. And then in the upper right, we've got our two machined mounts and our nut certs. Also in the hardware kit is a nutsert installation tool that is basically a certain size nut, bolt, and washer. Although we do recommend using a real nutsert installation tool if you're going to be doing a full set of these, because it's going to save you some time and a little bit of headache. But it is just perfectly possible with the tool that's included. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is set our panel approximately into place. Make sure everything seems generally correct. We've got our bed light up here. Your truck may or may not have that. And then we've got our switch right through here. So the first thing we're going to do, so generally this looks correct. I've got the right panel in place. I've got my cutout here for the bed light. So what I'm going to do next is remove the panel, set that aside. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is remove the bed light here. That's held in just by 2 screws using plastic anchors that are expanding behind the body here. So I'm going to use a 9/16 inch socket. I'm going to loosen these 2 screws, and then we're going to pry the light away, which is going to release those plastic anchors. So I'll zoom in as we're doing that so you can see exactly what's happening. All right, so we're just about done removing these fasteners. I'm going to pull that out, set that aside, and then we're going to go ahead and begin removing the light. So in order to remove the light, now the light is just being held in by 2 plastic anchors here that are expanded behind the body, like we talked about. So I'm going to use a screwdriver. I'm going to pry on the light as close to the anchor as I can so that we're not putting stress into the light. You're going to hear some pops there, and out it comes. Now you see these are the anchors that are expanded behind the side of the bed, and that's what you're pulling out. Now we're going to disconnect the electrical connector here. We've got our white gray clip here on the back of the connector. Going to pop that up if it's not already, and then we're going to go ahead and just push on it to unclip the light. Now take care with this harness. It's very short, as you can see here. That's not going to cause a problem for us unless it falls back into the bed, in which case we're going to have to kind of go fishing for it. So you may see me during this installation, I may even use a piece of masking tape to keep it out of the way and to keep it from falling back into that hole. But I'm just going to leave it right there for now. Okay, so this is the arts and crafts portion of the installation. We've got our printed template here. This is printed at a 100% scale. We can verify that by measuring this distance to there, which should be 2.5 inches. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sharp X-Acto knife. You might have a razor blade or similar. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I'm going to start with the inside pieces here, and then I'm going to do the holes, and then I'll do the outer perimeter. So follow along. All right, so there is our template. The sharper your knife, the easier this is going to be, and the better this is, the better your holes will be. So this is going to work for us, and kind of sometimes requires a little bit of customization around here to accommodate that lighting harness. So we'll just play that by ear here. We're going to take our template here. Now, depending on which side of the vehicle you're on, you may be working on the side that's printed, or you may be working on the side that is not. This notch goes towards the tailgate of the truck. So we can hold our template up here and see that those 2 rectangular features line up, but we've got an issue here with the wiring harness. So I'm going to mark kind of where that is, and I'm going to cut out a little bit right here to accommodate that wiring harness. So I've just made 2 slits here. I'm going to fold this kind of back and around, get it out of the way. And we've got a little extra meat up here at the top. I'm going to do the same thing there. And we are looking good there. So I'm going to take 2 pieces of masking tape, one for the top and one for the bottom. You probably have noticed that I moved that plug to the side and taped that as well. So I've got my tape on the top, making sure that that rectangular feature is nicely lined up. I'll tape at the top. And I will do the same thing at the bottom. Now the other thing that I like to do, instead of drilling through the template here, is I like to slip a piece of tape onto the point where we're going to drill. So we could have done that beforehand. There's one, and there's two. This is going to allow us to transfer our drill points from the template directly onto the tape so that we've got something to drill. Now I'm going to use a pen to very carefully mark the center. And then I'm going to remove this template altogether. Now that we're done with that, I'm going to set it aside just in case we need it for something. And I can see my two drill points. So one thing you might do at this point, now this is the mount that we're going to use in the rear of the truck. But if you're also doing front panels, you've got one of these dog bone mounts. These holes are at the same distance. So what you might do is hold this up here just as a sanity check. Make sure your drill points look like they're spaced about correctly. I'm going to look at mine here, and they are looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill a pilot hole. I'm choosing to use a 7/64 drill bit here, I think, because it's just the one that I grabbed. Another note is I'm using an impact drill bit here just because that's what I happen to have handy. Good sharp drill bits are going to make this a much easier job for you than if you've got something that is walking around on you. So we're going to drill a small hole here. In both of these, using caution not to hit that wiring harness too hard. And then we're going to switch to our 3/8 inch bit. Now this bit is going to be a little bit too small for our threaded inserts, so we're going to have to open up the holes just a touch, and we'll use the inserts to test it out. If you happen to have whatever size is just one above this, you probably know what that is offhand, and you've got 1,000 drill bits, but I don't. This is just from a regular Milwaukee set here. So I'm going to punch these holes. I'll probably do the first one. I'll double check the measurement again, and then I'll do the second one. And then we will grab one of the threaded inserts and get them just to the right size. Double check, we're still centered on that pilot hole. All right, you want to make sure as you're pushing that you're not pushing so hard that the drill bit, if it's long enough, obviously hits the outside of the bed. I'm going to hold our mount up here. We're still in great shape there, so I'm going to do the bottom one here. Again, mind your wiring harness. I like these impact bits with an impact driver because you don't have to push real hard. And they don't grab, they kind of punch through the material. So we're going to remove our tape here because we don't need that. All right, so that's kind of the scariest part, right? That wasn't so bad. And if you wanted to, you could put the wiring harness through this and really hold it up there. I'm pretty confident we've got it correct here. So here's our threaded insert. And if you try it in there, you're going to see it's not going to fit. It's not going to take much to open up the hole, though. I'll apologize to my drill bits later. It's not going to take much to open up that hole. To get this insert to fit really nicely. The tighter that insert fits in there, the better, so you don't want to hog it out too much. I'm going to do the top one here. I've got a pretty good feel for them, having done a handful. So now we're in good shape. We can take our threaded inserts out of the bag They're both in there. The next step is to go ahead and get those seated with our tool. Okay, so it's time to go ahead and get this rivet nut installed. You'll notice in your kit that you've got a couple of pieces of hardware in a separate bag. Something like that. It's a 1/4 20 bolt, a 5/16 nut, 5/16 washer, and a star washer. And this is essentially a makeshift rivet nut installation tool. So I'm going to take the bolt here. Hopefully the camera's focusing okay. I'm going to put a washer over the bolt. I'm going to put the nut then. Finally the star washer. And then I'm going to thread the threaded insert onto that just until before we get too snug there. And I'm going to put that back in the hole. The idea is we keep the large washer or the large nut in place. That's going to cinch down on the star washer and keep the threaded insert from spinning. And then we're going to tighten down this bolt. So to hold the large nut in place, we're going to use a 1/2 inch wrench. And to tighten down the bolt, we're going to use a 3/8 inch wrench. You could also use a socket. I'm going to use a wrench here. I'm going to try to use a wrench here in order to demonstrate more cleanly. All right, so I'm going to put my 3/8 inch right there. You could also do this, since you are going to be able to remove that after the fact. The problem is that the closed end of the wrench is a little wider on this particular wrench. We want to make sure that we're leaving space. So I'm going to do it like this. And then you're going to use the closed end of that wrench, put some pressure on it, keep the nut in one spot, and turn this, which is going to suck the threaded insert that's on the opposite side of the bed towards us. You'll get to a certain point, it's going to stop flopping around like it kind of has just now. The star washer is biting into the threaded insert. So I'm going to go, we don't want to over tighten, but you're going to feel a significant change in the amount of resistance that you have when you get close to tight enough. So there, it's getting snug. So what I'm going to do is then go ahead and remove the whole situation, and our threaded insert is installed. So now what I'll do is I'll install this threaded insert using the tool. You can get yourself one of these for about 50 or 60 bucks on Amazon. Comes in a set with different sizes for your different sized fasteners. I'm going to open up the tool. Oopsies. I'm going to open up the tool, thread, there we go. Thread this on there a little ways, and then as I close the tool, it's going to suck that in. So I'll put it in like this, make sure I'm lined up nice and straight. I'm going to pull on it like that. I'm going to screw this in a little further. I'm going to pull on it again. I'm going to screw it in a little further. I just like to take it nice and slow and easy. All right, so I'm feeling some real tension there. And I remove the tool. And you're installed. So both of these are going to work just fine. This is obviously faster. These tools are pretty handy for adding threaded inserts into just about anything. And most of the kits are going to come with some baggies of different sizes of threaded inserts. So it's a pretty decent little tool to have around. So now with these two installed, we can kind of dry fit the panel and figure out where we want our other two mounting points closer to the front of the truck. Next, we're going to go ahead and dry fit our mounting brackets here onto the panel. Doing so is going to allow us to use these two holes to locate the drilled holes for this bracket. As opposed to coming up with a fancy template, this allows us to just make sure we can attach the other end of this panel using the mounts that we just created. This allows us to make sure that your holes are located in a spot where you're going to be able to go ahead and install your panel. So I'm just going to loosely put in. You'll notice that on this bracket, there are 3 holes top and bottom. You really only need 2. The center hole is for a case where, depending on where you place this bracket, you may only be able to grab, you know, the 2 on the end. So I'm going to go ahead and start these fasteners. Now these brackets were powder coated after being tapped, so you're going to feel a little bit of resistance. Be careful not to cross thread. You're not going to have to use that sort of force to get these in, but just use a little bit of care when you're starting the first couple of threads. And then we'll make a note. Okay, so these are designed to be in a specific spot, and that is, you've got 3 slots here, you've got 3 rows of slots. You've got the top, the next row down, and then the next row down here. You'll be using the top and the bottom row here. And then this bolt is designed, this is the bolt towards the front of the truck, is designed to be in the 1, 2, 3, the 3rd slot up against the end of the slot there. Now I say it was designed that way. You can see there was a lot of wiggle room built into this. You may have other aftermarket accessories that you need to accommodate. You may need to adjust this based on where your holes ends up. So that's going to allow you, give you a lot of adjustment in addition to the larger holes there. So, but I'm going to go ahead and making sure that the 2 are nicely lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. All right, so these are not super tight. You saw I was doing that with just a small ratchet. If you got a cordless screwdriver of some sort, it's a great way to save some time. So now we're going to lift this panel up into the truck. We're going to install the rear mounts using that billet mount that we've got here, and then that's going to place these bolt holes for us. All right, the next step is to prep your lower mounting point here. That is the 3/8" stainless bolt in the washer coming through the larger nylon spacer, and then our rubber well nut. And we're going to go ahead and put that into this opening in the bed down here. Now this is going to be tight on this truck because it's got a spray and bed liner, but we'll see what we can do. Next thing we're going to do is prep the upper mounting point. Again, we're going to be using this billet mount. You'll notice that the back side of this billet mount has a recess. That recess is against the threaded inserts there. So I'm going to remove our tape. I'm going to fish this connector through our billet mount there, and I'm going to kind of just let it hang out. You'll want to get the 2 longer bolts handy because this will be the first thing we install. All right. With that, we're going to lift our panel into place. I'm going to be real careful again. I don't want to lose this wiring harness. I'm going to pull it through the bed like that. Every step of the way we pull this through, it becomes a little bit more secure. And then I'm going to get one of these holes lined up with one of our bolts. I'm going to lift the panel just a bit so that one of the bolts lines up with one of the threaded inserts. I've got it started. I almost lost my connector there. All right, so now that we're like this, because I hate when I got to fish a wiring connector or a wiring harness through somewhere, that's not part of this install and I'm not looking to do it. I'm going to go ahead and secure that like that. Okay, so we've got our 2 bolts here started just very loosely. And now we're going to move down to the bottom. So we've got a rubber nut in there. We're going to take the large spacer and we're going to pin it between the panel and the rubber well nut, and then we're going to put our bolt through there. Oopsies. We got our washer there. I'm going to put our bolt through our stainless washer through the panel, through the spacer, into the rubber nut. I'm just going to tighten it by hand a little bit. So we've got a little bit of support. Okay, so now our panel is basically hanging here by the 2 upper rear mounting points and the lower mounting point. Because we don't have those cinched down, it's able to swing a little bit, which is good because we need access behind this mount. So I'm going to zoom in on the mounting bracket here and show you how we proceed. Okay, so now we're at a point where we're basically going to use this forward mounting bracket to locate our next holes. So what you're going to want to do is hold this in a position where you're lifting the panel up, and you can reference the back edge against the tailgate to keep that straight. Do not reference this top edge and the gap between the bed rail lip and the panel, because this edge here at the top is not parallel with the bed floor. So you're gonna end up with kind of some wonky panels if you do that. So we're gonna kind of eyeball this. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take another piece of tape and I'm gonna put it where I think I'm gonna wanna mark those drilling holes. Drilling holes, that's funny sounding. All right, so we'll try that. I'm gonna hold this back up here. I'm watching my back edge to see if we're straight, and we are. So that is where I wanna drill my holes. I'm gonna go ahead and triple check the back edge here is straight. Again, we've got a little bit of wiggle room because these holes are a touch oversized. And then I'm gonna reach through here with a pen or a marker, whatever you have. And I'm gonna mark these points for our threaded inserts. So now that I've got those points marked, you can't see them and they're just being obstructed. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna remove the panel so we've got a good clean shot with our drill, and we'll install those threaded inserts. All right, here comes the fun part again. Just like before, if you'd like to measure from one drill point to the next, should be 2 inches. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these smaller pilot holes. Perfect. All right. And then because I've got those marked, I'm gonna remove my tape. Now I've switched to my larger drill bit here. I'm gonna go ahead and drill the first hole, and then I'm gonna measure again just to feel super comfortable with it. Now that's the benefit of having a really nice sharp drill bit, is you don't need to add force. Now I've got my loose bracket. Hold it up there. Looks fantastic. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill my other hole. All right, we've got 2 great clean holes now. I'm gonna take my 2 of my threaded inserts, and I know we're gonna be in the same situation where the hole is just a little bit undersized. So I will open it up. Just a hair, perfect. We'll do the second one. Perfect. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use my rivet nut tool again, because that saved me quite a lot of time before. Put that in there like that, make sure I'm straight, and cinch that. I'll put a little bit more tension into it. We're good, okay. I'm gonna pull that out. Looks great. We'll install the other, same way. I hope I'm making a good case for buying this tool. I wish I sold them. but they are readily available. Okay, we got some good tension there. You don't need to really cinch these down, because as you're tightening the bracket in, they will fully tighten. So now we've got our 2 mounting points here. We are just ready to go ahead and install the panel. Okay, so we've got our panel here. We've got all of our mounting points sorted out. We'll go ahead and reinstall the panel. I'm gonna start by getting the lower mount situated here. I've got our 3/8 inch bolt, our washer, and then a spacer. I'm gonna lift the panel into place and get that spacer started. At the same time, I'm going to manage that wiring harness. So, all right, so I've got that started. Now I'm gonna take 2 of our longer bolts and get them attached up here. Let me zoom you in there. All right, so this is our final installation of this rear mount here. Again, always being mindful of where that wiring harness sits. I'm gonna get the top bolt in there, line up the panel, and get the top one started. Get some good threads in there so we're not stressing that insert too much. I'm gonna grab the other bolt here. Quick look through there. We are still lined up pretty well. Get that one started. So I'm gonna leave those loose again so that I can do the front mount. All right, so this is a part of the installation where it varies depending on your bed length. On the longer of the 2 beds that we are currently supporting, that's the 6'4" bed, the bedside here actually sits further back from the center of the bed. So in order to accommodate that, we're gonna use the smallest of the spacers that are in the kit. Those are 1/4 inch, and we're gonna put those between the bracket and the bed. Now, I'm gonna try to save a step by just doing that with the brackets installed. If you wanna make it easy for yourself, you could uninstall the bracket, bolt it to the bed loosely, then go ahead and bolt your panel back to it. Like I said, I'm gonna try to fish these back here myself. Of course, I drop it. We're not off to a great start there. I've done this before, so I know you can get it started like that. And then I'm gonna get that started loosely in one of its threaded spaces there. And I'm gonna replicate this on the other side, and then I'm gonna tighten those down. All right, so I was able to get the spacer back there, and my arm was blocking the camera entirely, so you won't be able to see that. If you're having trouble with that, just separate the bracket and the panel, and you can easily fish a tool back through the panel to do this next step. So we built a little bit of slop into this bracket, so take a look at the rear of the bed, make sure it's still lining up vertically the way that you're happy with, and then we can go ahead and cinch these points down. Not real tight. None of this hardware needs to be really tight. It's small hardware. So just past a little bit snug is good. You'll want to check it again anyway. Now we'll go ahead and finish up at the back. We got our final steps here. Now that everything's in place, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down these 2 bolts. If you don't have the bed lights, you'll be just about done. If you do have the bed light, I'm going to show you the procedure for that right now. Take your bed light, determine which direction it goes in. The lights are obviously pointing into the bed. Now this is a little tight. Plug it in, push this clip down. I skipped a step here. You're going to want to remove these plastic anchors by squeezing them and just pushing them through the light. Just like that. And then the spacers that are the medium size are going to space out the light from the panel so that we clear these bolt heads. And then we're just going to use 2 of the shorter bolts to thread into the panel. So So I'm gonna make an attempt here to get that started up top with that spacer. And then we'll sneak it in the bottom. This is gonna be a similar case. There's some powder coating in those threads, possibly. So don't worry too much if it requires a little bit of effort to get. Okay, so we've got our top and bottom bolts and spacers in there loosely. The light can still kind of move around. I like to try and get the bolt heads centered on the square feature in the lights, but it's a matter of preference. We'll get those tightened down. Now you're not going to want to tighten them too hard, and you don't need to. Just enough that the light doesn't move around. Perfect. Okay, last step is to snug up our rubber well nut here. I'm using a 5mm Allen. This stainless washer is a little bit oversized for the bolt, so if you're a little bit particular like I am, I like to get it right. Get that washer centered in there nicely. I could always adjust it later, but let's do it once. And then you're going to be turning this, and what's happening on the back is that rubber well nut is bulging and locking itself onto the bedside. So you really don't need to really cinch this down. Just snug. What's holding the weight of the panels is the upper mounts. This is just to keep the panel from swinging out. So now we've got our hard mounting points in. We're going to add our rubber bumper over in the corner and we'll be good to go. So your kit came with a rubber bumper and a push clip. I'm going to slip that in. You can really put it in kind of anywhere you need to, but I'm going to slip that behind this lower slot here. Put the push clip in. That's going to keep the weight that you've got on the panel from trying to torque this bracket off, and instead it's going to be braced against the bed there. So we're in good shape. I can rock the whole truck with that, and we're ready to attach our accessories. All right, so we're looking at the front panel now. If you happen to be installing a front panel as well, that procedure is just about identical. I'm going to go over a couple of differences right now, and then I'll install it in fast forward because you've kind of already seen the basics. So one of the differences, the mount is a dog bone mount. We don't have to accommodate the bed lights, and it's going to sit something like this. So this particular truck has this reinforcement plate here. So you can see that the mount is going to kind of span over that. No big deal. We're going to include a deeper threaded insert because this double material is going to require a little bit different hardware. So we'll mark that. It'll be a little bit longer. So you're going to want to use your template to mark it, drill it up here and down here. With those in place, you can install your rubber washer in the bottom. With those in place, you can install your rubber well nut in the bottom here. You may have a cap or two caps. You may have bed liner sprayed over this. You may have to score it with a little bit of a knife to make space for the well nut. So you're going to hang your panel like that with your bracket on it. And so once you got your front mount down here, you got your lower well nut in there, you got your panel hanging here with your support bracket. You're going to go through the same procedure to mark your drill holes somewhere in this surface here, and then go ahead and install it without having to worry about the light. And so I'll go ahead and do that now and fast forward.